Well, welcome back, everybody. And today we're going to be looking at some specific benefits that are federally mandated, such as Social Security and FMLA. We're going to end with FMLA because that's probably the most comprehensive today as our families are becoming more diverse. And as the working mom and the working dad come to work, we've got to take into consideration their well being. And if we want to retain them, we've got to make sure they can also have a life outside the business as well as producing for us within the business. So let's go ahead and start today with some of the specific benefits that employers provide each employee. Okay, everyone, today we're going to finish up Employee Benefits, Chapter 13, and today all I want to do is just to emphasize some of the more practical benefits that most every organization, if you're under federal jurisdiction, which most companies over 50 employees will be, will have to be able to provide. Now, when it comes to benefits, one of the first terms that we need to understand is open enrollment. And you've probably heard that term before. Open enrollment is the time when you can change your coverage. And it's really, by definition, the time when employees can change their participation level in various benefit plans and switch between benefit options. For instance, if you decided that you no longer needed as much, maybe dental or vision benefits, and you want to switch that over maybe to medical, then you can do that during the open enrollment. And your company will give you those dates when you can do that. Outsourcing benefits administration. Now, oftentimes organizations have to juggle very large and complex benefits packages. So with the fact that many organizations must coordinate efforts to administer benefit programs, many will retain a third-party administrator, and that's a vendor that provides administrative services to an organization. So they help ease the burden of benefit administration by taking that on themselves. Now, one of the things that I want to point out with cafeteria benefit plans, it's kind of like what we discussed yesterday, where oftentimes you can pick and choose what benefits you want. And here the employee is given a budget, and from that budget they can choose from a menu of different options, as you see here, offered by the employer. So cafeteria benefits are the means of being able to pick and choose what you want. The danger in that, as we saw yesterday, is picking or mismatching your needs with the benefits that you choose. A young person may not need a comprehensive burial plan or a comprehensive dental plan or something like that, but they may choose it not understanding really what their needs are, their true needs are, as opposed to what's being offered. Now, there are legally required benefits that I had mentioned earlier yesterday, and one of those is the Social Security Act of 1935, and it provides old age survivors, disability, and retirement benefits. Social Security is, you don't get too much, but it is a way of receiving benefits in your old age. Medicare is a government-operated health insurance program for Americans 65 or older, and you see how it's taxed. Both the employer and the employee are taxed. So you see the Social Security is at 6.2, Medicare 1.45, and additional 0.9 Medicare tax for high-income employees. So if you're making above a certain amount of money, you may be taxed more. And here's the big one here, long-term viability. Will there be Social Security and Medicare by the time you get old and the Lord tarries? Will you be able to draw these benefits? And there's a lot of debate about that today, because what the government is doing really to be able to cover all of these costs that they're incurring, they're drawing from the Social Security bin and the Medicare bin and putting IOUs in there. So essentially there's going to come a payday, and that's what people are worried about. The government is borrowing money from this, from these two and others programs, which they're not really supposed to do. I mean, Social Security is earmarked for old age. Medicare is earmarked for older age. And their rationale behind it is that, well, if we put IOUs in, then it's going to be okay. So that's how they get around it. So the idea of long-term viability, by the time you get older, or even I've got another probably decade before I can retire. Who knows what it's going to be then? But that's really what the concern is today. Now, workers' compensation, it deals with workers who are hurt or injured on the job, and you have to, with this, balance the right of the employer and the employee. Now, here you see the different types of considerations. You have no-fault insurance, which means that the employee is going to get paid no matter what if an accident occurs, even if it was his or her fault. And then exclusive remedy, which means a workers' compensation will be the only benefit that the workers receive while they're recuperating or whatever from the employer to compensate for work-related injuries. They can't claim anything else other than the workers' compensation benefit. You also have unemployment compensation, and if you've ever been out of work and you're looking for work, then you can draw from unemployment compensation. It was established by the Social Security Act of 1935. It provides a minimum level of benefits for workers who are out of work, and each state operates its own system, so benefits differ by state. In other words, you don't get paid the same as every state. Each state differs. And companies pay an unemployment tax, and here you can receive 26 weeks of 50 to 80% of your regular pay. Now, that, I believe, can be adjusted if you file for an extension, but normally this is a period of time where you should reasonably be able to find work, and after which you need to either go to work or do without the benefits. So it's an incentive for people to get back to work. Now, retirement plans are programs established and funded by the employer and or employees to fund employees' retirement over the years. Now, there are different types of retirement plans. You have a defined benefit plan, and here the employees are promised a pension based on their age and years of service. Then you have a defined contribution plan. Employer and the employee makes a contribution to the employee's retirement account. So a defined benefit plan is strictly on the employer. And here you have, with defined contribution, both the employee and employer both putting into this program. And then you have cash balance plan, which benefits are based on accumulated annual company contributions. You have the percentage that they want to contribute of the pay, and you accumulate the interest that has accumulated also. Now, FMLA, there's a lot that goes into it. Today, the Family Medical Leave Act provides a maximum of 12 weeks of unpaid job-protected leave during any 12-month period for the following situations. You have normally childbirth, and that's what it originally started out as, a way for mothers to be able to have children and be able to spend a few weeks with them and then come back to work. Adoption of a foster child, or placement of a child, and then caring for a spouse, child, or parent with a serious health condition. So it has relatively expanded over the years. Now, the Family Medical Leave Act also covers employers with 50 or more employees who live within 75 miles of the workplace. So if the employer falls within this category, they fall under the medical FMLA mandates. Now, employees who have worked at least 12 months and 1,250 hours in the previous year are qualified to take part in FMLA. So that's an important consideration too. Now, serious health conditions. If the illness or injury requires inpatient care or continuing treatment by a healthcare provider that exists beyond 3 days, you can apply for it. Military family members who have to handle the affairs of military members called to active duty may qualify for it. And then 26 weeks leave to care for a military service member injured while on active duty. So if a service member gets hurt, they come back home. While they are rehabilitating, you can spend up to 26 weeks as a part of that rehabilitation support. And then finally, you have the impact of FMLA. There's a significant percentage of employees who have taken it. Employees have to cover the workload for employees on family leave, and it places significant demands on HR professionals to ensure compliance with FMLA provisions. So here's the thing about it. People have abused this, and I've heard of some of my students who work have seen people taking FMLA days off just arbitrarily. And it's one of those things where do we go ahead and not question it and just let the work suffer, or do we challenge them and risk a lawsuit? And many people today are not willing to risk litigation over it, so they'll just tell them, okay, fine, do what you need to do, and then they go about it as such. So FMLA, even though it has a good premise, even though it is a necessary, I believe, benefit for people who are trying to work and still face the challenges of life, the difficulties of life, it still, as with everything else, can be abused. Now, as HR professionals, you have to be not only on top of the law, but you also have to realize, too, that the company still has to keep going. So from a staffing standpoint, from a logistics and operations standpoint, you have to make sure that the people are adequately, or the organization is adequately manned with the right number of people in the right place and doing the right job. And that can be difficult when you have a significant amount of employees who may take advantage of this benefit and so forth. So it has its challenges, but FMLA, as we said before, is a way to be able, when we look at diversity, it gives us a way to be able to provide for the worker and also to make sure that that worker can stay, especially if they're productive and doing what they're supposed to be doing. This gives us a way of being able to keep them without having to make the hard decision of terminating them or laying them off or whatever. Well, so far with all of this, in this chapter, we've seen some of the practical aspects of benefits. And again, I just want to remind you that when we think about benefits, it's more than just getting a paycheck. Employers invest a whole lot of money, they have to, in their employees to be able to keep the best and the brightest around. But as you consider the blessings that you have, especially with work, not only should we thank the Lord for our employers giving us the salaries that we have, but also taking the extra step to give us the benefits that we need. That's going to wrap us up for this chapter. We will start tomorrow with another chapter, chapter 14. I just want to cover a few things about it. We won't go into any great detail, but we'll continue on tomorrow with Chapter 14. Until then, have a good day, and we'll see you tomorrow. Well, today you were just given a brief overview of some of the many benefits that employers have to provide to employees. And when you take a look at the cost of benefits, maybe you can gain a newer appreciation of it, especially when you get the paycheck and it's not as much as you would like it to be. Also, to consider how much money is being spent on you for benefits. Well, that's all we have for today. Now, tomorrow we're going to be looking at risk management and providing for a safe work environment. So until then, have a good day, and we'll see you tomorrow.